Hey there, welcome to part 2 of our lesson on constructing the human head. In part 1, we discussed how to construct the head from a simple sphere, as you see a recap of playing now. In this video, we'll build off of that base, showing how to draw anatomically accurate facial features. And in case you're curious, I'm using a red watercolor pencil to sketch here, which I like to use when laying in construction lines like these. That's because unlike some colored pencils, which can be fairly waxy and hard to draw on top of, watercolor pencils allow you to take a mechanical pencil, for example, and draw darker, more final lines on top. You'll also see me use a Tombow Mono Zero mechanical eraser with a 2.3mm eraser lead, which is one of my favorite tools to use. Let's first lay in the ears, or ear as you may only see one at a time. The ear will extend more or less from the brow ridge down to the base of the nose. Seen from a more side angle, ears take a sort of hooked C shape, with the top being a bit wider than the bottom. I like to draw the inner folds of the ear like this, but in case that seems a bit complicated, we can simplify the ear even further. Looking at this photo, we can draw the basic ear shape like this, with two additional lines that we can use to simplify the interior ridges. The first is a basic curved line like this to form the outer ridge of the ear. For the interior shape, we can simplify it with this sort of line, which is a bit hard to visualize, but I like the way that the artist Mark Crilly describes it as a sort of thumbs down mitten shape. Here you can see what those lines look like on their own. And note how the top part of the mitten, so to speak, tucks into the other line that we drew. With that, we can draw the ear on our head like so, which I'll draw just slightly narrower than a full side view since our head is at a slight angle. Now, let's talk about the eyes. In order to properly place the eyes, we can use our existing landmarks to draw in the eye sockets. It's helpful to draw the trapezoidal shape between the eyebrows. This is called the glabella, if that helps, but it doesn't really matter. On either side of this shape, though, we can draw the eye sockets, which follow the brow line before angling down just to the side of our lips, before curving back around in a sort of glasses-like shape. And again, pay attention to how this shape will distort in perspective on the far side of the face. The eyes themselves will sit in the middle of these shapes. Another measurement we can use to pin this exact point is the halfway mark of the whole head. And here I've used a dashed red line to divide each half of the front portion of the face down the middle, which will give us the middle point of our eyes. You may be used to drawing an eye with an almond sort of shape, but I like to simplify them by using 3 lines to determine the top lid and 2 lines for the bottom, plus the inner corner bit. In order to know how wide to draw the eye, you should be able to just fit a third eye in between the 2 that you've already drawn, keeping in mind perspective. There's one more line that will be helpful to show the form of the brow ridge. Let's look at this portrait to show what I mean. If I draw the eye sockets on this guy, you can see in green where I can draw the brow ridge extending out from the corner of the eye. Applying this to our drawing helps to define the profile of the face on the right and gives us more form to the forehead. Now I can lay in the eyebrows just on top of the brow ridge and add a few more details around the eyes, including the crease of the upper lid and the iris. With that, let's block in the nose. There are various approaches to drawing noses, but if we take a look at this photo, I like to simplify it into a box with a top, side, and bottom face. The bridge of the nose on top and the side faces will be more rectangular, while the bottom appears a bit more trapezoidal. To define the tip of the nose, I like to picture 3 spheres, one in front and 2 on either side for the nostrils, though you may only see part or none of the nostril on the other side for a face at an angle. With this guide, I can draw the final shape of the nose. Note how the opening to the nostril curves in between these spheres. Then I can draw the edge of the nostril wrapping around this opening. And similarly, the tip of the nose will wrap just around this line too. And here you can see what that would look like from a front-facing view as well as an angled view. With that, we can lay in the nose on our drawing here. I've aligned the edges of the nostrils to be in line with the corner of the eyes, but like all features, noses can vary widely in shape, especially across different cultural groups. But with that, let's move on to the lips. The middle line between the lips will sit around the halfway point between the base of the nose and the chin, and often just slightly above that line. The corners of the lips will end right around the middle of the eyes. And see how I'm not just drawing a flat line, but that it's more bowed in shape. I can build the lips around this, with the upper lip following more of the bowed shape, and the bottom lip being a bit rounder. Again, keep in mind perspective and how the lips are wrapping around the curve of the face. But with our features laid in, I can finish the overall shape of the head, including where the cheekbones slightly stick out. I often like to include this structural line along the cheek to emphasize its curve, down to where the muscles of the face curve around the jowls, and then down into the chin. But depending on your lighting setup, you may not see these lines clearly on your own portrait. Then all that's left is to define the hairline a bit further, and there we have our head laid out. Now I'll demonstrate what this process looks like when drawing a front-facing and side-facing portrait. If you're working in Photoshop, one tool I'll mention for front portraits is the Symmetry tool. With your brush selected, you'll notice a butterfly icon here at the top. If you click that, you can see all sorts of symmetry options that it gives, which I recommend you try out for no other reason than it just being fun. But if we select the vertical symmetry option, we can drag the line to be down the middle of our portrait and press enter. Now, whatever we draw on one side of the face will be mirrored on the other. Of course, real life is rarely perfectly symmetrical, so this tool can result in a sort of robotic look for your portraits. But if you just use it to lay in your features, you could disable it before doing your final lines, allowing the slight imperfections to show through and result in a more realistic portrait. You'll also see that I disabled this when working on the hair, since I wanted it to be split along the side and not the middle. And here you can see all this applied to a figure looking to the side. This process starts just as we did before, but note how, since we're looking directly at the side, the ellipse we draw on the head appears as a circle. But just like before, we'll draw in our axis lines to determine the angle of our hairline, the brow line, and the base of the nose, before extending that distance down one more time to get the bottom of the chin. Drawing the neck from the side may not feel intuitive at first, so I recommend looking up some reference for that especially. But look at how the neck extends out a little bit under the chin, before sloping down into the Adam's apple, which will be more pronounced on men, before tucking down into the collarbone area. Whereas the back of the neck follows the shape of our original circle before straightening out and then sloping outward for the trapezius muscle. These angles will change depending on whether the figure is looking up or down as well, so make sure to pay attention to that on your reference. I'll go ahead and lay in the cheekbone and ear as you'd expect, but then we get to the eye, which can be notoriously tricky to draw from a side view. First, note how I'm still indicating the shape of the eye socket, which extends just to the edge of our inner circle. Now I can position the eye within that socket with a triangular shape. And here I draw the upper lid as a subtle line on top, and the lower lid extending down from the front of the eye. From there I can draw the eyebrow on top of the ridgeline, and also slightly push that ridgeline out near the eyebrow before it goes up into the forehead. And when I began practicing these sorts of portraits, it felt weird to me to place the eyes so close to the front of the face. For some reason I wanted to place them further back, or in this case, further left on the head. But remembering that the eyes sit on the midline of the front plane of the face, which you can see highlighted here, helps to make more sense of that placement. Next I will block in the nose, with its bottom sitting right on the line extending from the ear. Notice how I didn't make the nose come to a point, but the tip of the nose has a top and bottom face. From there I can draw in the circles to flesh out the nose tip and nostril, and use those as the guides for me to draw the rest of the details in. For the mouth, it will start by curving down from the nose and forward a bit into the upper lip. Remember that the lips should extend back to be roughly in line with the center of our eye. Then I'll draw in the lower lip before blocking in the rest of the chin, which tends to take on this sort of shape. From there, it's just a matter of laying in the hairline, maybe adding a bit of simple shading, and there you have it. With that, we'll bring this lesson on drawing faces to a close. Of course, there is a lot more we could cover regarding more nuanced facial anatomy, especially when it comes to drawing the individual features with more detail. But for now, this should be more than enough to get you moving. Take a look at the following sample assignments that you can use to begin practicing your own portraits. And if this video helped you, give it a like and subscribe so that the algorithm will push this out to others who want to learn real, tangible art skills. I'll see you guys later, and until then, keep creating.